Wait a minute, that's not right. The IC title match reaches a breaking point. Drew McIntyre can't get out of his own way to get a match with Punk. Chad Gable has cracked the Wyatt 6 case, and Dom bumbles his way back to Mami's heart. Okay, in the news! And the news indeed, it is Monday Night Raw from Dayton, Ohio, and we had one title match, so let's start with that. Sami Zayn took on Ilya Dragunov for the Intercontinental title after Zayn requested the match after Dragunov helped out Zayn last week against Braun Breaker. But, of course, Breaker was not at all pleased by this announcement, so he argued with Pierce, and Pierce told him to leave the arena, which we did see Breaker do under his own power, and followed by a few security guards. So surely he was out of the way for the match. So in the main event, we had a pretty even match between these two competitors who showed great respect for each other earlier in the night, with Dragunov landing a Constantine special, an H-bomb from the apron to the floor, and hitting a coast-to-coast dropkick. But Zayn was no slouch either, as he hit a springboard moonsault to the outside of the ring and a blue thunder bomb. But the big sequence occurred when Zayn got his foot up as Dragunov attempted a senton off the top ropes and then hit a haluva kick, knocking Dragunov to the floor. But of course, at that point, Breaker reappeared and hit a running spear on Dragunov to cause the disqualification. Zayn then tried to fight back against Breaker, but he was not able to fend him off completely. Breaker, being the fresher man, overpowered him and landed a spear in the middle of the ring. For the match itself, Dragunov improves to 4-3 in one-on-one matches with his second straight win. For Zayn, this stops a 4-match winning streak, and he falls to a still impressive 10-6 in one-on-one matches. But the night was dominated by the Judgment Day, per usual. So our match of the night is Damian Priest versus Braun Strowman in a non-title match. But let's go chronologically here, where Rhea kicked off the show saying that Mami's home, and all of the WWE Universe rejoiced. Except maybe for Liv Morgan, as Rhea immediately called her out. Instead, Dom came out trying to get back into her good graces. But Rhea turned her back to him, and Liv then showed up on the Titantron saying that she now understands why Rhea likes Dom so much. But Rhea said the revenge tour stops here and challenged her to a match for the title at SummerSlam. And thankfully, Liv actually agreed to this. And then Dom tried to give Rhea a black rose, but Rhea eventually grabbed it and tossed it away. Shortly thereafter, Rhea also tossed an entire bouquet of black roses right back at Dom. Rhea then thanked Priest in the locker room for keeping the Judgment Day together while she was gone. But Dom interfered and admitted to Rhea that he messed up and tried to contact her all last week. To which Rhea retorted, "What about the last 3 months?" Which was a really good point. But let's get to the match, as Priest called out Gunther face to face, and Gunther called Priest street trash, but Priest responded saying that Gunther has no heart. And right when it looked like they were going to get into it, Strowman's music hit and he came out to start the match. And Priest, surprisingly, was more tactical and cautious to start this one off, trying to find an advantage due to Strowman's strength and size. Strowman went for a freight train outside the ring, but Priest was able to sidestep it, and Strowman landed into and over the barricade that injured his left knee, slowing him down for the remainder of the match. And even when Strowman later gained an advantage, he went for the running power slam, but his knee buckled on him, allowing Priest to end up hitting the South of Heaven chokeslam to win. For Priest, as Michael Cole noted, he has no singles losses since January and is 6-1 in one-on-one matches in 2024. For Strowman, this is his first one-on-one defeat as he falls to 3-1. Now, of course, Gunther was not quite done with Priest after the match, as he came back out and Priest urged him on, and the two went at it for just a moment before Priest hit a clothesline and Gunther went to the outside of the ring. So they will start preparing for their SummerSlam match in just a couple of weeks. But back to Dom, Jay came up to Priest and Dom asking if Rhea was single, saying that he was ready to holla at her. And I mean, I have to admit, this is hard to believe. Jey Uso, this man is a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time, and he has not found a girlfriend or a wife after all these years. Really hard to believe that he is not a happily married man after all of these years. Well, anyways, back in the Judgment Day locker room, Balor and McDonough discussed Liv helping them win the tag team titles, but Rhea told them not to worry about it. But then Dom yet again interfered in the conversation, telling Rhea that he got a match with Jay due to that conversation, and Rhea first called him stupid for making the match, and then called him a coward if he was going to go back to Pierce to cancel the match. So it looks like Dom, like so many men, cannot win either way. Nonetheless, Dom then said that he needed to prove that she belongs to him. And that was a truly bad mistake. Rhea then walked away. Man, bad move. Whew. Okay, anyways, we did have a match here. Dom attacked Jay from behind while he was still yeeting with the entire crowd during his entrance. But once the match started, Dom actually looked more focused and vicious than usual, landing a Three Amigos and then stopping a suicide dive in its tracks to gain the upper hand. Jay did eventually turn things around and was setting up for an Uso splash, trying to get the win, when Liv appeared and grabbed Dom's leg, pulling him out of the ring and to safety. Dom argued with Liv for interfering, but Jay then hit a baseball slide into Dom's back, causing Dom to yet again fall on top of Liv. But this time, Liv turned it right back around so that you could remember that she's always on top. But as Liv looked like she was going in for a smooch, Rhea's music hit and Liv ran up the steps, leaving the arena. So while the match was still going on, Dom tried again to talk to Rhea, but she told him to get into the ring and finish it. But unfortunately, Jay was right there to immediately land a spear and a splash to win the match. For Jay, he's now won 2 matches in 2 weeks and improves to 9-4 in one-on-one matches, while Dom is the complete opposite of Priest, where his last win came in January, losing 7 in a row, and he is just 1-7 in all singles matches. But despite all that, Rhea caught up with Dom backstage, saying that he belonged to her, and she was the one that gave him a black rose to end the night. So I guess things are on the mend for those crazy kids. Who would have thought? Well, there were actually a few other things on Raw, so let's quickly hit those. First, speaking of hitting, it was a hard-hitting affair between Sheamus and Bronson Reed, highlighted when Sheamus hit the 10 beats of the Bowron over the announce table. But Reed came back hitting a sit-out powerbomb, but he then missed a moonsault, giving Sheamus the opening to hit a kneecap to get the win. Very surprising, Bronson Reed would go down without needing a brogue kick to finish him off, but still, for Sheamus, very impressively, that gives him 2 straight wins, and he is 4-2 in one-on-one matches. For Reed, this stops a 3-match winning streak in one-on-one action as he falls to 4-6. On the women's side, we had Zelina Vega take on Sonya Deville, but this one was over almost immediately as the numbers game continued to haunt Zelina as Zoe distracted the ref and then Shayna immediately wrenched her arm and stomped it, giving Sonya the opening to immediately hit the Devil's Advocate to win the match. For Sonya, this was her first match since last July 28th when she lost a tag team match with Chelsea Green while they were champions, but it was a non-title loss to Bianca and Charlotte Flair. However, they of course had to drop the tag titles. However, even more surprisingly, this was Sonya's first singles win since May 8th, 2020, when she beat her former best friend, Mandy Rose. For Zelina, well, we know she's not doing much winning either, as she falls to 0-7 in all singles matches. Lastly, in tag team action, we saw Carter and Chance take on Sonya and Zoe. Carter and Chance again amazed with their incredible tag team moves, including a keg stand onto the floor that took out both women. However, when Sonya got involved, things started to break down and Lyra took a boot to the head while she was trying to help out. And this led to Zoe eventually tossing Katana into the air, where Shayna hit that devastating flying knee to get the pin. For Shayna and Zoe, they don't really need Sonya to win matches, but nonetheless, I guess it doesn't hurt as they improved to 8-2 in all traditional tags, while Carter and Chance unfortunately dropped to just 3-7. Beyond the map for Raw, we had Adam Pearce speak with the suspended Drew McIntyre in the middle of the ring, but they both agreed that a match between McIntyre and CM Punk would be special. But Pearce needed just one thing from McIntyre in order to make the match official, and that was for McIntyre to apologize to the two refs that he pushed in the post-show at Money in the Bank. But McIntyre said no, and he argued with Pearce that everything was Pearce's fault for the way things turned out. So Pearce said that McIntyre was still suspended. At that point, McIntyre became enraged and again pushed both refs and argued even more with Pearce. But finally, Seth Rollins came out and hit a super kick to make the save for Pearce. Lastly, we had Chad Gable also speak with Pearce, saying that Uncle Howdy was Bo Dallas, to which Pearce apparently was certain this was the case, but I guess he did speak to Dallas last week, so maybe he knew things that all of us didn't quite know. Well, that said, Gable told Pearce that he was going to call out Dallas later in the evening. Gable found the Alpha Academy members speaking with each other, saying that they would help out a friend when he needed it. However, Gable was snooping in the background and he thought that they meant him. So he came up to them and said that he had cracked the case, saying that Uncle Howdy was indeed Bo Dallas. And Maxine, I guess she is quite the detective, and she said that everybody knew that to be the case. Well, I guess, we said that was probably the case after what we saw on the videotape, but to me that could have also just been some really impressive editing wizardry going on. We couldn't really determine whether the Wyatt Six were technologically impaired or technologically advanced. As we said, they're using VHS tapes, but they have all of these glitches and QR codes that they had throughout several months that WWE couldn't stop, so it was really hard to know which way this was going to turn out. But we did have those glitches last week where the faces of the Firefly Funhouse members intermixed with these other WWE wrestlers, making it look like they very well could have been. But I guess I have to say, maybe we have to give them credit for being able to do such tricky things with such an old technology. And if that turns out to be the case, who knew that you could have one person play two different roles on the screen at the same time as two different characters? Truly genius at work right there. I asked for the remote, not a relay baton. Sportsu, what is this? Why are you showing this? I don't need anyone to see my blunder at the triathlon video. That's terrible. Well, Anyways, back to it. Gable then told the Alpha Academy that he was calling out Dallas and he was glad to have the Alpha Academy's help. But at this point, Maxine said that they were not talking about him, and that is when Xavier Woods showed up. Gable became mad and he stormed out. So next week we will have the Alpha Academy with Xavier Woods as they try to take out the Final Testament. So back to the videotapes, we had Pat McAfee have the Wyatt Six interfere onto his Pat McAfee show. Wow, okay, I guess it could happen when you're just doing sports work and then your WWE business can also come back to haunt you at the same time. Geez, who could ever put up with all of that all at once? Just hard to believe. You truly have to be a master of your craft to be able to do both of those things, so props to McAfee. Nonetheless, he gave the tape to the WWE and they showed it, and this time it was Uncle Howdy interviewing Eric Rowan, who said that he had lost 2 brothers recently and said that he fell down a hole that he didn't want to get out of. But they handed him his old Wyatt family sheep's mask, and he said that they would turn broken hearts into beautiful art. Lastly, we did have Gable eventually call out Bo Dallas in the middle of the ring, and as Dallas was approaching, the Creed brothers came from behind and attacked Bo. And that included throwing him into barricades multiple times, slamming him against the ring post, and then having Gable in there for a 3-on-1 beatdown. However, as you can guess, the Wyatt Six would get involved as the lights went out and they came to rescue their friend. So Gable first and then the Creed second left the ring as the Wyatt Six and Dallas joined together. So with that, let's go to our STFs. And in our STFs this week, let's of course start with our standard Judgment Day edition, but it was a pretty light week for them admittedly. So first we'll note that Priest and Gunther had a brief scuffle after Priest match, but this was pretty even, so we're not giving anyone anything for that. But we did have Dom attack Jay prior to the bell, while Jay and everybody else were yeeting, so Dom will pick up a fine. Lastly, during the match, Liv pulled Dom under the ropes, having Dom land on top of her with his Dirty D. So Liv will pick up a fine that I'm sure she's not too sad about getting. In our other usual suspects, we had Braun Breaker spearing both Dragunov and Zayn, causing a DQ in a title match, so he has to pick up a 1-week suspension. We again had Drew McIntyre lay hands when he pushed 2 WWE referees, and then after getting super kicked, he also kind of gently pushed 4 different security guards. So for this, McIntyre will have to pick up a 2-week suspension. And after the Bronson Reed Sheamus match, we had Pete Dunne again entering the picture, and he first helped out Sheamus after it looked like Reed was going to attack Sheamus from behind by hitting Reed with a running knee. But Sheamus then wanted to celebrate with Dunne and shake his hand, but Dunne refused, leaving the ring. But Dunne was not done there, as he then immediately turned around while Sheamus had his back to him and elbowed him in the head. This gave Reed an opening then to land a tsunami on Sheamus. So both Dunne and Reed are going to pick up fines. Then when Bo Dallas was coming down the ramp to meet Chad Gable, the Creed brothers both viciously attacked Dallas from behind, and then Gable joined in on it, so all 3 of them, Julius, Brutus, and Gable, will have to get 1-week suspensions. Then on the women's side, we had Zoe and Shayna immediately distract and then attack, respectively, Zelina during her match with Sonya. and this immediately caused the end of the match where Sonya hit the Devil's Advocate, so Zoe and Shayna will both pick up a 1-week suspension. But they weren't done there, because after the match, Zoe, Shayna, and Sonya all started to beat down Zelina in the middle of the ring, but fortunately Lyra, Carter, and Chance came to her rescue. But Zoe, Shayna, and Sonya are all going to pick up an additional fine. Braun Breaker couldn't help but get in the way of a great Intercontinental title match. Chad Gable got his first taste of revenge on the Wyatt Six, and Drew McIntyre couldn't help himself when trying to get his SummerSlam match against CM Punk. But Mami was able to get her title match for SummerSlam against Liv Morgan. But did Dom do enough to get back into Mami's good graces? We'll just have to wait and see. Until next time, I'm Dr. O'Kay, reporting on the WWE, where everything is okay.